generally they don't, but just so that we're making sure.
Does anybody know Kathleen F? Okay, now folks are starting to arrive. So we've got like a minute or two before we let everybody in. Just presenters again.
Entonces, comenzaremos esta reunión en 1 o 2 minutos.
If community members become argumentative, that's where Catherine can step in and, can redirect and,
La reunión del área de proyectos de la West Colfax está por comenzar.
If anything feels like it's going in the opposite direction, then she can really be great to assist with bringing everybody back into the purpose of this evening. We're at like 5 community members right now. Let's see. And it's 6:01, I think. Is that what? Yeah, 6:01.
So quick thing, real again, just we have our projects and we're going into West Colfax, then Vision Zero, and then Stewart Street, correct?
Yep.
All right, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anthony, since this is already being recorded, we'll need to cut out this first part before it gets posted.
Who recorded it? I didn't hit record.
Oh, I heard a recording in progress. So.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was
Francisco's reporting.
Got
in
it.
Spanish.
Okay. Got it. We'll just need to make sure to cut that part of it out. But since it's 6:02, I think we can.
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out how to admit all, and it's not. I'm just gonna have to do them one at a time then. Okay, I'm starting to admit. Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
Bienvenidos a todos.
Welcome to our
Bienvenidos a nuestra
area program of projects.
reunión pública del programa de proyectos de la West Colfax. Estamos admitiendo a los miembros de la comunidad y vamos a empezar en unos minutos.
Bienvenidos a todos. Estamos esperando que se nos unan más miembros de la comunidad y vamos a dar inicio a la reunión en un momento.
And also, as we're getting
Y
settled in,
también a medida que vamos a comenzar la grabación de la reunión en este momento para que luego la podamos compartir con ustedes en el sitio web. Bienvenidos de nuevo a la reunión pública virtual del programa de proyectos de la West Colfax del 5 de mayo. Gracias por estar aquí esta noche con nosotros. Tenemos mucha información para compartirles.
Muy bien, voy a iniciar la grabación de la reunión para que todos estén conscientes de que estamos grabando esta reunión. Y bienvenidos a todos. Feliz 5 de mayo. Y gracias por compartir esta noche con nosotros. Tenemos mucha información que brindarles.
okay, we'll go ahead and get started.
Entonces vamos a comenzar de nuevo. Bienvenidos. Y como en todas nuestras reuniones suministramos interpretación al español y para lograr accesar la interpretación, ustedes lo van a hacer utilizando su tableta, su computador o su teléfono. Lo van a hacer pulsando el globo en la parte de abajo de la pantalla.
Vamos a dar inicio a esta reunión. Como todos ustedes saben, nuestras reuniones son bilingües. Y para escuchar el canal de interpretación, haga el favor de conectarse usando una tableta o computadora y pulse el icono de la interpretación y seleccione el idioma de su preferencia.
Great. And next,
Muy bien.
and then Sherry.
Vamos a ir a la siguiente diapositiva y ahora voy a presentarles la agenda esta noche y a darle la batuta a Catherine Archuleta, quien es la moderadora de esta noche.
Catherine, you're muted.
Welcome, everybody.
Bienvenidos a todos. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros esta noche en
5 de
esta
mayo.
maravillosa tarde de 5 de mayo aquí en Denver.
Nora, I think we can hear you on this side.
I messed up. I fixed it. Sorry.
Okay, so now I just wanted to remind you that all of the participants, that we will stop during presentations just to make sure that you have time to ask questions or make comments. But I would also encourage you to use the chat. The chat's a really good way to get your questions out there. It also captures it for posterity. We're able to keep those comments and questions in the chat, and we use them to help remind us of things that we'll want to follow up with you on, or things that we'd like to share with other people who perhaps are looking at or listening to the recording after the meeting. So please feel free to use the chat. And also, if there's at the bottom of the screen and reactions, if you'd like to raise your hand, that's a way for me to see you, because it moves you to the top of my screen. But if I don't see you, please don't hesitate to just sort of jump in. So we have 3 presentations and conversations that we would like to have with you this evening. One on the pedestrian and transit improvements, and it's moving in its last stages of final design. And your comments and will be very important feedback for us. Moving on then to Vision Zero, a quick build update, and then I will go into the Stewart Storm project update. So we're going to go from 6 to 7, and so I'll stop talking and make sure that we all have opportunity to ask questions. So there's some rules just to remind you that will help facilitate the meeting. Stay on mute, use the chat window, and make sure you ask a question anytime you want during the presentation. You don't have to wait till the end. So Lisa, I think we're going to start with you on the West Colfax pedestrian and transit.
Yes, thank you, Catherine. And welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Hilt. I am the Denver Dottie project manager for the West Colfax pedestrian and transit project. Nancy Lambertson is our design engineer with Mueller Engineering Company, our design project manager, I should say. Just want to remind everybody, this isn't the first time we've come here. So project purpose is safety. West Colfax is being improved from Sheridan to Irving Street. And the main purpose is to make it more transit friendly and safer for pedestrians walking and crossing down this corridor. That's the main focus of this project. So we'll be constructing median islands, curb extensions, and in those median islands, we'll have refuges for people to cross at unsignalized intersections. So it's easier to cross at different parts of the roadway. These improvements will help shorten crossing distances. So where we're putting in the curb bump outs, there's a shortened distance for pedestrians to cross from one side of the road to the other, whether it's a side street or across Colfax itself. This also reduces conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles that are turning left down West Colfax, making it safer for people to get around. This will also slow down turning vehicles around the bump outs, the bulb outs, I should say, and will provide places for people to wait while crossing. So in the center of this intersection here, you can see a couple of little, yep, right in there. So right where the arrows are, there's median refuges right there. So as you cross the road, you have a place to wait in the median so that you can safely cross to the other side of the road. You don't have to cross it all at once. And Mike King with our Vision Zero group, he's going to talk more about the data that has driven these safety improvements to take place here.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Just double checking. All right, did you want me to cover this slide as well? This was not one of the safety slides.
Sorry, Mike. Yes, I thought you were gonna go over the.
I'll take it from here. I've looked at it, so I can handle it. I'll
apologize.
take it. Sorry about that. All right, yes, thanks, Lisa. My name is Mike King, and I'm on the Vision Zero team here at Dottie. And for those that don't know what Vision Zero is, it is the goal of 0 fatal and serious injuries on our streets by 2030. I'm sure you've seen the logo down in the corner there on many of our projects. And this is a project that is very much a Vision Zero project. Right now, this area is rapidly growing and past community plans have called for a pedestrian-friendly walkable Main Street. Those being the NTMP projects, which are the neighborhood transportation mobility plans, and then the community transportation network projects as well. A lot of these area plans really focusing on West Colfax as a major connection for the pedestrian network. We know that there's schools, senior housing, residents, businesses, all located along this corridor that does generate pedestrian activity, as well as other roadway users. And again, West Colfax is a part of Denver's high injury network. High injury network being where 50% of our serious and fatal crashes happen across our city, while they only represent 5% of our total mileage across the city. So very big difference there. And then just a couple quick stats here, and then we'll get really into the meat of the crash analysis. So there's been 7 fatalities on this corridor in 2019 and 2020, 3 of them being pedestrian, and then 21 serious bodily injury crashes in 2019 and 2020. And what a serious bodily injury crash is, for those that aren't aware, are crashes that usually result in hospitalization. So not or injuries, I mean, that usually result in hospitalization. So again, this being a pedestrian project, we always want to make sure that we're focusing on pedestrians first on this type of project, but we also look at all roadway users. This slide particularly focusing on the pedestrian crash map over the last 10 years. And you can see there's been about 25 serious bodily injury crashes that involve pedestrians across the entire corridor, as well as 5 fatal crashes. Typically, when we do Vision Zero projects like this, if we see a specific intersection where there is a big issue, we would do a spot treatment. But because this is a full corridor trend where there's really almost a crash at every intersection, we want to do a full corridor analysis and a full corridor improvement. And then looking again at that larger crash picture, so not just pedestrians, in that 2019 and 2020 window, there have been 131 total correctable crashes. And what a correctable crash is something that we could do engineering wise that would eliminate this crash from happening in the future, eliminate or reduce this crash from happening in the future. Of those 131 total correctable crashes, we've seen 12 serious bodily injury and fatalities in that window, which gives us almost a 10% rate of crashes resulting in serious or fatal injuries. That is by far the highest rate in the city. First, second is federal stretch that we're doing a lot of projects on, and third is along Colorado Boulevard. And sorry, Broadway, not Colorado Boulevard. But just to break down this project specifically, there's been 94 vehicle-to-vehicle crashes, 14 pedestrian crashes, and 3 bicycle crashes. I think this is our final slide for the crash picture, and then we can open it up for some questions if there are any about the crash picture. This is just a snapshot of a specific stretch of the corridor. We do an analysis like this for all of our projects prior to determining what the best design treatments are. And as you can see, we'll start from left to right, just what the crashes were that occurred in this stretch from Stewart to Quitman. First being 2 left turn crashes, 1 resulting in fatality, 1 resulting in serious bodily injury, those both being vehicle collisions, driver to driver crashes. And you see there was a pedestrian crossing that resulted in a serious bodily injury. Jumping to Raleigh, no serious bodily or fatal injuries on this stretch, but again, 6 crashes in that intersection specifically. Then there was a mid-block pedestrian fatality as well between Raleigh and Quitman. And then lastly, you can see at Quitman, There were, again, left turn movement crashes, either entering the left turn lane on a merge or making a left turn onto Colfax. And one thing that I did want to mention between Raleigh and Quitman here, you can see that there's also those right turn crashes that occurred. And in some of the images that Lisa has shown, and we'll see further down where those bulb outs will be installed, that typically slows vehicles making those types of movements. And a lot of these crashes are a result of people taking those turns too quickly or having difficulty seeing oncoming traffic. Bulb outs really help with both of those. So with that, I want to open it up for questions if anybody has any about the crash picture.
Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have any questions about the data that we've just seen? Does anybody want to comment on the data? Okay, thank you, everybody. Mike, do you want-
Catherine,
There were some
is-
chats.
There is a
Oh.
question in the chat.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Kathleen, a comment.
Let me just get to that. I'm sorry. Anthony, let's see. Here it is. So Kathleen, will these improvements help reduce vehicle speeding? And Mike, do you want to, or is this leading into your next presentation?
I was going to ask Lisa if you wanted to take that one.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it should help reduce speeding down this road. We're adding in medians, we're adding in bulb outs. So these are different elements that should be slowing traffic down, catching their attention as they go. So yes. And as everybody knows, we can't control everybody, but this is a traffic calming kind of elements that we're adding to West Colfax to help with that.
If I can just jump in here real quick, one of the benefits that we've seen nationally on other projects is when we narrow the roadway by providing bulb outs or medians into the roadway. What that does is it actually has the effect of narrowing it, and narrower roadways encourage slower traffic. And so that's one of the things that this project could help achieve.
Jaime had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Jaime.
Yeah, thank you all for this information, especially this. I know this crash data is not new, but it is still disturbing and shows the importance of this. So I'm grateful for that. I just wanted to kind of raise a couple of things that I wasn't clear on from the first part of the presentation, and that was limiting the left turns. Because from this map, the left turns are to the northbound. But from the southbound, I don't really see the data, and I don't disagree that it's just as dangerous, especially like on Knox, where it's like a diagonal crosswalk. And so my first concern is like I live in Villa Park, and that's one of the entry points to Villa Park is Colfax, right? So limiting those left turns I wasn't clear on where those would happen when our main entrances are Perry and Knox Court. And then the other part I just wanted to comment, because I love the idea and it just makes me think about that area. And are we talking about like bulge outs and medians that look like right in front of Girls Inc. with the, you can really, like really frogger your way across to the school right there safely, I think. And I was just wondering if is that what you're talking about with bulge outs and medians? Thank you.
Yeah, happy to take that question again. So you'll still be able to turn left in and out of Colfax at signalized intersections. Where we see a lot of the conflicts with left turning movements is at the non-signalized, and that's really what this is trying to address. And then to answer the second part of the question, the bulb outs, I'm unfamiliar with where Girls Inc. is at, but there are bulb outs, medians that are located close to Irving Street. So they will look similar to that. And we'll actually show you some pictures or some renderings of what those will look like a little bit later in the presentation.
And I want to just say that we're not just leaving the spots open at signalized intersection. There's a cadence of every 2 blocks, it will be open for left turns. So not just at signalized intersections. So Perry will be left open for full movement to turn all directions at that intersection.
Dan would like to know if we can send the crash data slides or whether the deck is posted.
Yes, we will post this slide deck on the West Area Projects webpage. by early next week. And Catherine, Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi,
has
yeah,
her
see,
hand up.
Heidi?
Yes, thank you. So I know we're going to get into this in later as we go through the slides, but since it was brought up about the putting in the medians, there are medians west of Sheridan as soon as you go, when you're going west on Colfax into Lakewood. And in my car, I don't notice traffic slowing when it crosses over Sheridan into the Lakewood part of West Colfax. I'm just curious if Dottie has, or someone has, any statistics that show that traffic does significantly slow because of those improvements on West Colfax west of Sheridan. Thank you.
Here's from CDOT here. I might ask them to jump in here just since they know more data statewide. And I will also say our medians that are going to be designed in this stretch might look a little bit different, particularly because they'll have landscaping, which also will add to it as well. But I'll let CDOT jump in.
Sure, I can do that, Riley. So for those that don't know me, my name is Tony Berdisi. I'm a resident traffic engineer here with CDOT. And I can speak to that a little bit on the Lakewood side of things, west of Sheridan. For starters, as Riley mentioned, there are some differences in the types of medians that are going in here. Also, the significant benefit that comes from these types of medians also comes shortly upon installation of these medians. So it's kind of an existing condition west of Sheridan. It's been there for a long time. People get used to it. Speeds start to change. Volumes start to change when you get west of there. It tends, unfortunately, to open it up. One thing that should be worth considering is that the city of Lakewood, as you go further west, has also got some funding to do a project to do some very similar type improvements through safer main streets. They're going to be very much aligned with the type of improvements Denver's going to do to help aid some traffic calming and make things safer for pedestrians. Ironically, as you go further west here, the pedestrian picture, frankly, gets a little bit more bleak. And I think the type of medians that are going to go in here are definitely going to have a benefit far greater than what we're currently seeing west of Sheridan. I can take any more questions, specifics on that, but I wanted to offer that up first.
Heidi, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, so are we to expect that between Irving and Sheridan that we will see some improvements once those medians are installed, and then that improvement will slowly dissipate?
No, that's an interesting pickup there, and it's an accurate pickup, but I don't think so, because this corridor is also being narrowed. A little talk was given earlier about traffic calming associated with these medians. I think that'll stick in this particular corridor because of the density and the lane widths that are going to be here, plus the bulb outs. They are not the same as you go further west. That'll help make a big difference as well. So I do not expect them to dissipate. Over time, medians like this still show a positive impact, upwards of 70% for overall crashes, 30% for pedestrians, just from that refuge. So I don't think they'll dissipate. We don't typically see that.
The other big note that I'll note just west of Sheridan is that the travel lanes, there's actually 3 lanes on each side, whereas ours is only 2. So definitely a much more narrow roadway than what you'll see there.
A question from Shane. Hi, Shane.
Hi, guys. Previously, we've done some temporary art type of installations on the sidewalks, whether that's with chalk or we've even done, some sort of gorilla bike paths and things like that with tape as a demonstration project with support of the city a number of years ago. Is it possible to incorporate any artistic elements or youth and community engagement elements that the neighborhood group and potentially supporting nonprofits could be part of?
Yeah, so Shane, with all of the Denver projects, there's a certain threshold that we have that all projects, I can't recall the exact number right now, but this project falls into the category where 1% of the total cost of this project will go to an art fund, where we will do art in or around this area. I can't guarantee that it's going to be along the West Colfax corridor, but funds from this project will contribute to public art throughout the city.
Pardon me I'm on my phone. I can't see all the participants. I don't know if Dan is here from the West Colfax bid, but I've heard a similar conversation with Dan, and I know he was part of the installations previously. And if there's a way we could pool resources or collaborate in order to put in some kind of fun community engagement type of stuff, something that would look festive in the neighborhood on West Colfax, I would love to be part of that.
So Dan was
Hey,
clapping. Yeah, Dan was
Oh, yeah.
clapping for you. So sorry
yeah.
to, yeah, so he's listening, Shane.
I'm here and I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'll just say that, yeah, I like that idea. That's a great idea, Shane. I did want to follow up to see, on that same idea. I think what Shane is talking about, one of the things that we did is we installed art crosswalks at a couple of intersections at Raleigh and Perry, I think. But anyway, that if it's possible, or Tennyson, one with Tennyson, but are you saying that the 1% for art in this project wouldn't necessarily accrue to the project site, Lisa?
Can you ask that one more time? I didn't quite.
Yeah, you were saying that there's 1% for art, and that just goes into a general pot, but it doesn't then get spent on the project area.
Sometimes it does, Dan, and sometimes it has to be around the area because it's not possible to be done at the exact project location. So our art group will take that and determine where the art project will go. And it will not go concurrently with this project. Usually they typically come after. And since this is CDOT road, it would require coordination with CDOT as well for this.
So
Yeah,
Lisa,
Dan.
so now we're hearing from Shane and Dan and a couple of others. That's something that the taking back to the team, the interest in having it as close to the transit area as possible.
I would love to collaborate on that, and of course engage with Shane and others in the neighborhood. That'd be terrific.
Yeah, and Dan, I wanted to speak to something Lisa just mentioned. She mentioned that it's because it is a CDOT road. I've worked with you in the past on some other things.
Yeah.
There is a CDOT art in the right of way sort of policy that has to be gone through. So there is a bit of a process that CDOT would also have to be working with Denver and anybody else involved for anything on Colfax.
Sounds like an opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah. Did you say
Love
art
it.
is the right way?
I love art. I love art. As a traffic engineer, there are some things, right? That's why there's a policy. So there is a process. It's not just to know it, but there is a process.
Just in the
Yeah.
interest of time, I'm going to move us on to the next slide because I know we have a lot to get through. Shane, did we answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I need to unlower my hand now, don't
Okay,
I?
thank
Sorry.
you. All right.
All right.
Mike, are you continuing or?
I'll pick back up.
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Mike, and sorry for putting you on the spot there. You did great. So I just want to go over our timeline for this project again and just remind everybody, this started planning back in June of 2019. We had a public meeting number 1, came out to the community to present the project, got some feedback. We developed a concept design in the middle of 2019. Came back to the public again in September of 2019 with another public meeting, got the remaining feedback, which was the basis for starting this project we're going into now. In 2020, we got our remaining funding. So originally, our funding for design has come from the Elevate Denver Bond Initiative. So back in 2017, the Denver citizens voted on funding safety and transit project along West Colfax. So that's where funding came from through the Elevate Denver Bond Program. And then in 2020, the remaining funding is being contributed by CDOT and their Safer Main Streets initiative. We applied for a grant and we got a match from CDOT. So another partnership going on. Thank you, CDOT. We started our engineering design in 2021. Muller Engineering came on board to start the design. And then in December of 2021, we had our public meeting number 3. We heard a lot of comments back from everybody. We got a lot of feedback through Conveyo. And so now we're here at public meeting number 4 to present to you what we heard from you, what the updates that have come about from getting close to finishing design, as well as addressing comments and public input. So we expect our final design to be complete in the fall of 2022. And this is new because originally we had that design being done, being completed in 2023, the beginning of 2023. So we've been able to move up our schedule a little bit, which is great. Good news for everybody. And then our construction will start in 2023, the beginning part of 2023. This kind of put a little bit of a wrench in the Vision Zero project, and Mike's going to talk about that more later. Just the timing of the two projects kind of doesn't quite line up now with our expedited schedule. It's great for the project, but our interim project kind of put a wrench in that project. So our key public input that we heard from you all is you had some concerns about pedestrian crossing safety at Corky Gonzalez Library, the Colfax Elementary, Newton and Vrain Streets. So I want to point out at Irving Street, we're adding the bulb outs at Irving. So the project ends at the west side of the intersection of Irving and Colfax, and we're adding bulb outs there to help crossing distances lessen. So that should improve safety. Our other group had implemented LPIs already, lead pedestrian intervals at the traffic signal intersections. So that means that the signal turns red, we get the walk signal for pedestrians to cross, and the green light, it takes a while for the green light to turn. So everybody that is walking has some lead time to start going across the street. That helps vehicles see people more clearly and makes those intersections more safe. We're also adding bulb outs at Newton and at Vrain. And we have talked about this at length, the signal decision at Mead and Lowell. So during the planning phases of this project, the community asked for a signal to be moved from Mead to Lowell. And our data doesn't support a signal for Lowell at this time, but that's something we're going to be monitoring. And Nancy's going to talk about that more later on in this presentation, so I'm going to leave those details to her. Another thing that was brought up by the community is landscaping. You all wanted greenery along this section of Colfax. You didn't want a concrete jungle. And between working with CDOT and Denver and some different groups, parks, we were able to figure out landscaping in the medians. So that was a big win, and we're so happy we can provide that and add that to this corridor. We've also evaluated parking locations to try to not conflict with the transit operations that are going down through Colfax. Someone had asked to consider reducing speed along Colfax, and within the last several years, the speed limit has been reduced from 35 down to 30. So that's not a consideration with this project, but that's already been implemented several years ago. So public transit improvements are also going in for the overall design to help people get on the bus quicker, the bus get through the traffic signals quicker. That's all part of this project. It was also requested that we widen sidewalks, and while this is not a sidewalk project, we were able to take a comment from Conveo to widen sidewalk in one section of West Colfax. And I think Nancy will also go over that as well, where that location is. It's where we have a taper. And I already talked about LPIs, lead pedestrian intervals, where you get the head start as a pedestrian to cross at a signalized intersection. So we've had a lot of good comments, and we've been able to implement a lot of changes based on those comments. So thank you all for your input.
Lisa, there was a question from Jerry about left-hand turns allowed at Lowell. It might refer to a little bit to the conversation earlier, but maybe you could address it now.
I was just going to say, we have a slide on that later, Catherine.
Okay, great.
So
Perfect.
I'll probably address a few of these comments at that point in time, and then we can always, go back to them if we don't address them to people's, if we don't address it in enough detail.
Okay, and thanks, Shane, for your comment on feeling really great about the landscaping.
Yeah.
I just had one question about the sort of the process, which of course, and there are a number of things you've done over time that have been, sort of responsive to what things coming from the bid and its members. But one of the things that we had asked for or wanted to know about was having the sort of, what do you call those things where you I don't know, speed indicator lights or signs that tell people how fast they're going, just that sort of instant recognition that you need to slow down. And I just wondered if those had been incorporated as part of your design.
Thanks for the question, Dan. I think we've covered this maybe before. Those are not part of our design, and I believe that's something that has to go through DPD. And I don't know, maybe Tony can speak more on this.
I can speak a little to that, Lisa, probably not too in depth right now, just because I know it hasn't been part of this discussion, in this design at this point, anyway. There is a process to go through. DPD essentially has to make certain requests kind of in alignment with the red light cameras on CDOT right of way. Certain things right now aren't really allowed, like the feedback signs is kind of what they are, Dan. They're the speed feedback signs that pick up with radar your speed, and then they start flashing and they're set at a certain level, then you see red and blue lights come on. We don't really have those right now. We haven't been approached recently about that. So it's something that, probably wouldn't be a part of this project, but probably be a separate discussion after the fact. If it's something that folks wanted to entertain, but it does have to come through the city and DPD, as Lisa mentioned, to CDOT.
So just Tony, just to recap on that. So right now, it's typically not done on CDOT right of ways, but it's allowable.
What's presently potentially allowable is the flashing, right? So say you've got the speed limit of 30, and I'll try to be quick. I know you guys want to move on. The speed limit of 30, and you really don't want somebody going over 35. So at 35, it starts flashing. The part that's not presently allowable is the red and light, the flashing lights that look kind of like a police officer, right? That's the part we currently don't allow on the CDOT right of way. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay, Lisa, I think you have a couple more slides.
Sure. This slide, I'm not going to go through everything, but this is just a reminder of all the public meetings that we had to go over this project, where we presented to the community. So we've been coming out to you guys since 2019. We had a little bit of a gap because of COVID, but we're back and we're ready to keep going. So next slide. All right, here's an example of the improvements that are going in along Colfax. So you see the median island being added. You see the pedestrian bulb outs. And like I said earlier, this is meant to lessen the crossing distance for pedestrians on those side streets, as well as crossing Colfax. So you cross Colfax and you can cross one side, hang out at that pedestrian refuge until it's safe to cross to the other side. That's a big benefit for safety for people trying to get across Colfax and navigate their way along this corridor. We are adding 8 new landscape median refuge islands. And with this, we're preventing over 60 left turn conflicts with pedestrians and vehicles. So this is a great safety tool. We'll also be adding about 30 additional parking spaces from what exists today. So you can see it starts on the north side from Yates to about Raleigh, and then there's a transition, and then we have parking spaces on the south side. So we'll be adding parking to the area, and I think that will help people get to where they need to go, and businesses as well. Added parking for businesses. Just a reminder of our transit improvements. We are also adding bus bulb outs. So this will create additional waiting areas at where we add the bus fold-out stops. This will consolidate and reduce travel time for transit. And we have traffic signal priority, which gives special signals to the traffic signal to get buses through the corridor more quickly. So that's a big benefit to keep people on time, keep the buses running, and keep things moving.
Can we just, there was one question that Kathleen had that maybe back relevant to this slide before there, Lisa, is she's asking if there will be relocation or removal of RTE shelters that are no longer bus stops, and that is there anything being done to ensure businesses are diligent in removing snow from sidewalks during the winter months?
Sure. As far as RTD shelters where we're consolidating bus stops, yes, I believe those will be removed. And as far as diligence in having businesses.
Lisa, just start.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject on the bus shelter. Those are all like actually business improvement district shelters. So we've been coordinating with property owners and RTD and the city and Riley to move them. And there's actually one that's currently orphaned at Irving because they eliminated the 16L. But we do have plans to relocate that one and also the one that's at Raleigh eastbound. So those shelters will be moved so that they're no longer, serving no purpose. So the one at Raleigh will move over in front of the McDonald's. The one at Irving will move on the other side of Irving, on the west side of Irving, sort of in our landscape area, essentially, once the bulb out's built out there.
Great, thank you, Dan. Yes, I forgot about that. Thank you.
Sure.
And Heidi has a question in the chat.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I think we're at discussion. Yep.
The answer to that. So the question was, how does parking work with BRT or regular movement along the outside lanes? So in the areas of the street where there isn't the on-street parking, one of the benefits of with the side of the street where there is the parking, the bus is able to stop at one of the bus bulb outs and not have to pull out of traffic, and so that reduces delay. Sometimes transit operations, they see delay when they're having to pull out of traffic and then pull back in. So the bus bulb outs will benefit that. As far as BRT goes, bus, which stands for Bus Rapid Transit, right now what's being done as a part of this project are improvements to make transit quicker. It's not full bus rapid transit yet. That is something that's planned for in the future. And when that does happen, what would likely happen is that it would remove one of the travel lanes, which is similar to what's happening on East Colfax. So where you would have a vehicle lane and then a dedicated lane that's for the bus operations.
And then on the snow, I just want to jump in on that snow because I think that one of the reasons that the parking that the on-street parking was moved and shifted between, like starting at Perry, was to actually mitigate the splashback onto the south. The businesses on the south side of the street where they would get, it just really becomes hard if you're one of those business owners to keep it ice-free when there's splashback. But by having parking in front of the businesses there on the south side, for example, where, across from the Rose Lady, it'll be a lot easier for those guys not to have to deal with constant, splashback of ice and snow, and easier to maintain the walks in a safe condition.
I'm just wondering, with cars parallel parking, that doesn't affect a bus, and also wouldn't widen sidewalks also help with shortening that splash distance? I'm just wondering what, we talk about wider sidewalks and how that really addresses pedestrian safety very simply. And for us, it makes us feel safer when we're walking and rolling along the street. And it's also a benefit to local businesses. So I'm just wondering, why that was that. It seems like an easy solve. So I'm just wondering why more car infrastructure was put in instead of pedestrian.
Sure. So just to answer the question about the bus bulb outs, the bus bulb outs actually go all the way into the street, and so the bus doesn't have to pull over when they're so basically they don't have to get out of traffic. We understand, of course, that wider sidewalks is an important priority for the community as well. Just based on the limited budget that we had for the project, or kind of limited funding, I would say that the biggest priority that we're trying to solve or achieve as a part of the project was the crossing, because that's where we're seeing some of the serious injuries and the fatalities. And so that's what we're addressing first. With that said, that doesn't mean that we can't widen sidewalks through a different project or through other efforts. It's just that was, the crossing piece of it was what was being prioritized as a part of the effort.
I'm gonna move us on because I know we're running short of time, and I want to respect everybody's evening. Is there any one burning question, or if there's any particular thing you'd like for us to follow up on based on this presentation? If you could just put it in the chat, that would be great. And then I think we'll move on to Mike.
So we're moving on to Nancy Lambertson.
Oh, sorry, Nancy.
To give us our design update. So here we go.
Okay.
So yes, Sherry, just as we talked before, as Lisa brought up, we've talked about the traffic signals at both Rain and at Mead. We went through the traffic signal warrant studies, and at this point in time, they do not meet warrants, but the city has promised to continue to monitor them. And when they do meet warrants, to look into installing signals. So you can go to the next slide, Sherry. Same thing at Lowell, same issue as at Brain, where in this case, people were asking to relocate the signal from Mead to Lowell. City typically doesn't do that because of the potential to damage the signal. Once again, it did not meet warrants, but the DOTI is committed to monitoring these locations to see in the future when they should be installing signals. So we can go to the next slide. One change, after talking with CDOT, after our 30% design and some safety concerns we'd had identified, we will have a median installed at Lowell, and I believe, I'm looking for the name, someone asked earlier about being able to turn left. So Jerry did. This median won't prevent DOTI from constructing a signal when the warrants are met. You will be allowed to turn left off of Colfax, either go northbound or southbound onto Lowell, but you will not be allowed to turn left from Lowell onto Colfax. And so this is a change. One other thing I wanted to talk to also that's shown a little bit, and Sherry, maybe if you can just highlight the south side of the street, you'll notice that those curb and gutters look a little wider than maybe what we were showing before. After a lot of conversation with CDOT, who has been a great partner in this project, making sure we had the appropriate lane widths for buses, but also that we could fit in landscaping. One design change that's a little different from what we were showing before is that on both sides where we're putting in bulb outs, we'll be doing those 5-foot gutters, and that's what's out there now. That'll provide a little bit better running surface for the buses in those outside lanes, and also give us the lane widths that we need for everyone to be safe, and provide us the width for the landscaping, which, as everyone knows, was a huge win for overall this project. All right, next slide. Just a little bit on drainage, and I know Lauren Winnan is going to be talking more specifically later about the Stewart project. Just wanted to remind everyone that we'll be looking at relocating storm sewer infrastructure to maintain drainage with the new bulb outs. We want to make sure that water is, especially it flows away from the curb ramps. No one likes to go to the bottom of a curb ramp and step in a puddle. Also to the defined parking areas that Lisa was talking about earlier, we'll provide some areas for snow storage, so that is not then getting piled up on the sidewalk. So hopefully that helps with some of the snow and the icing issues. And then also we're adding inlets as needed to supplement the existing system. Once again, wanting to make sure that we are maintaining the existing drainage and obviously not creating any pools or what we like to refer to as bird baths. So Yeah, I think we can go to the next one. Yes, Colfax and Irving. Another discussion, with our partners over at CDOT, and just as you all know, kind of as you go through that intersection now, the lanes don't necessarily line up. And so we are changing that existing median and some of the striping so that the lanes, both in the eastbound and the westbound direction, line up across the intersections. It'll be easier for drivers to navigate and just make sure, when they get across the intersection that they're in the appropriate lane. A couple of a case here. Go back one more. Sorry. This is a case where you can see on the north side we're bulbing out a little bit and adding some sidewalk here, and the same thing on the next slide, Sherry, where we are tapering the parking from the north side to the south side over by equipment. People asked for a little bit more sidewalk in these areas where the tapers are, and so we've pulled the curb and gutter out into the roadway a little bit, providing some wider sidewalks as requested. We can go to the next slide. Okay, everyone wants to talk about landscaping. So this is kind of the design that we're working with right now. I wanted to point out maybe on the right side, Sherry, where the refuge is. Just from a dimension standpoint, what we're looking at is 7 feet by 8 feet from a refuge standpoint. So it should be large enough for you, if you're crossing Colfax one direction of traffic at a time. It's a wide enough area that you'll feel comfortable standing there while you're waiting for a gap in the other direction. You can see this is kind of a looking down view on what the landscaped area would be. We can go to the next slide, and it shows kind of from the side of some of the concepts that we're looking at. Maybe some trees, some planting, a few kind of, and I'm not a landscape architect, so I'm probably getting some of this wrong, but a few kind of stone slabs and things like treatments like that in the median, just to get obviously aesthetics, but also comfort and feel as you're traversing the corridor. And then I think the next slide, Sherry, there shows a little bit. You can see on the left, we have a parking area. You can see that there's a bulb out where there's a little bit more area for bikes and peds to wait. And then the refuge area going out into the median. Hopefully too, that this design process too, going back to some of the comments earlier, by putting in a median visual cue to help slow down the traffic in this area. Once again, knowing that this is a safety project. So I will leave it for a discussion break, but that's kind of a big overall response to the comments we received at our last couple of meetings.
So one of the questions that we're seeing in the chat by several people is, Nancy, is the construction schedule and how that will be timed. Is it going to be in segments and sort of what time of day? Can you talk about that?
I'm going to have to default to Lisa. I think it would mostly, I'm assuming it would be day construction with some of the with the residences that are close to Colfax. Night construction can be pretty disturbing in that regard. And then we are looking at, as Lisa said, we're looking at starting construction probably earlier spring of 2023, and kind of a year and a half, give or take, through 2024 is the timeline that we're looking for as far as a time frame. But if you wanted to add to that, Lisa.
Yeah, construction will likely be phased. So we're not going to rip up the whole entire section of Colfax at once. So rest assured of that. It's not anticipated that this will be night work for construction. That can change, but we do not anticipate night work.
I also want to bring attention to Heidi's suggestion that maybe there's a walk audit along the corridor that where there are these pedestrian intervals, and that might help the residents and business owners understand more about how those intervals will work with for pedestrian safety and also calming and slowing of traffic. And there were several people who supported that.
And also just to provide feedback from the community, not so much to be explained to how they're designed to work, but how maybe we can work together to make sure that you all understand how they're maybe not working as well for us. Thanks.
Thanks, Heidi. And then Heidi, you also have a question about the landscaping, how it's going to be maintained and the budgeting for ongoing maintenance.
Can answer that question real quick. So for initially, our Dottie will actually be maintaining the landscaping in the median, and then our hope is that our Parks Department, which is responsible for a lot of the maintenance that occurs today in the medians, will take that over for us. But either way, we do have a mechanism to maintain these, and they will also be irrigated so that they will be watered as well.
Okay.
I just wanted to add to the one of the biggest concerns I think that Jerry's reflecting in his comments has to do with the impact of businesses during a big construction project like this. And so I was just wanting to see if I could tag one of you guys, maybe Lisa or Riley, because we're having a similar conversation on East Colfax around BRT and more of a sort of a grant-based approach to that kind of thing, and with economic development, with Dottie, which is or DIDO, economic development. And so I would like to see if we could have that same conversation here, because this is a big, similar to BRT project scale.
Yeah, Dan, feel free to follow up with me, and then we'll happy to connect you with Dito and have that conversation.
Well, can we add Jerry into that conversation as well? Okay, great. I know we have a few minutes left, so I want to jump on to the West Colfax Vision Zero presentation, and then also please continue to put your comments in the chat. As you know, we save those and can follow up on them. So thank you. So I think Mike, you're going to do the
Yes.
Vision Zero update.
Yes, thank you. And just to reintroduce myself, if anybody's hopped on late, I'm Mike King. I'm on the Vision Zero team at Dottie. And just have a quick update about a project that we presented on the past couple months here. It's the Vision Zero Quick Build project. This was initially a plan to install paint and post near-term improvements that would reflect what the long-term project would be installing in the long run. Unfortunately, fortunately, I should say, the long-term project had an accelerated schedule. So our project is not going to be moving forward at this time. That there were two different pieces that really happened. There's a significant loss of availability in contracting work, and paint and post treatment projects are not on the top of contractors' priority lists currently. So we got pushed to about the end of Q3 to do our install, which would then result in this project being installed for about 6 months. And we just made the executive decision that this money was better spent elsewhere, and this money won't just go right back into the full Dottie budget. This will go back into the Vision Zero pedestrian improvement project. So in the long run, this is very much a big win. The longer term project is going in, and we will get to get more projects across the city that are going to help pedestrians across the board. So just to reiterate that timeline too, obviously we're here in May. We would have gotten this project installed at, again, around September timeframe. Even if we wanted to use it as a pilot, only having 2 months between that September timeframe and final design doesn't really help us that much for the long-term project either. And then once again, construction would start right back up, start of in the beginning of 2023. So to add on to the construction conversation, that's a little bit less construction that will have to happen on the corridor. So all the good news in the long run for the most part. Our team was a little bummed at first, but then I realized how great it is now that we get this longer term project. So we're very excited to see this project get in sooner. That's all I had. If you want to give any questions, or we just jump right into Lawrence. I don't think.
Why don't we just jump over to Stewart Street? Any comments, if you could put them in the chat, and we'll finish up with Stewart Street and then close off with any final comments.
Thanks, Catherine. And we're going to actually push the Stewart Street project to June. So if you are interested in learning more about the Stewart Street project, then definitely join us for the June 2nd CAG meeting. This project is it's a storm drain project from Colfax to Stewart Street that'll be in construction the end of this year and in 2023. So if you're interested in learning about that one, definitely come in or tune in June and hear about it.
Yeah, and also for those participants, we will add this Stewart Street Storm Project on the West Area Projects website. And so it will have its own project page, its time,
Yes.
and you'll be able to keep up to date. But by no means is the June presentation the only opportunity to hear about the project. We will invite Lauren to, other CAG meetings in the coming months, as well as community meetings. So thank you, Lauren. Do you want to just keep going, or I know that Sherry's showing the slides, or does it get complicated and it's best just to wait until?
Well, it gives a preview to some of the things that
what's to come.
Lauren's going to be talking about. So you'll not want to miss the June meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess it doesn't hurt to go through it.
Yeah, we'll provide a more in-depth presentation with Lauren at the June 2nd, which is a CAG meeting, but the community at large, we always want to make sure that you know that you are invited to any meeting that Dottie hosts, which is always the first Thursday of every month from 6 to 7 p.m. And Andy has his hand up, Catherine.
Yeah.
Sure. Hi, Andy.
Hi, just so then quick question, if we're not going to talk through the Stewart Street improvement or the drainage stuff today, is the project itself still on the same timeline? I've seen sort of signs and closure or the beginnings of possible closures going up on Stewart Street. When does that project actually start for you guys?
Yeah, so we don't have a contractor on board, and we won't have a contractor on board for a few months. And so this is a general storm project, so it's packaged with some other locations. We do that for our smaller neighborhood need projects to address local flooding, so that we can put them out to bid together and hopefully get a better price on them. So then because of that, the contractor can kind of decide what location they do first. And so we won't know exactly when construction will start until we have a contractor on board, which will be a little bit later this year. But once we have a contractor on board and a schedule, we'll definitely present that to the public. But you can plan for a 2023 construction. They'll start down at the south end on Dry Gulch and then work their way up to Colfax. So depending on what part you're interested on, they'll do one block at a time closures of Stewart Street. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. I know we're a couple of minutes off. I just want to remind you that our next meeting is on June the 2nd. As Anthony mentioned earlier, everyone is invited, not just CAG members, but all public are invited to our CAG meetings, and I hope you can join us. Obviously, there's a lot of information to share. It's exciting thinking about when we stood up the CAG well over a year ago, and now where we're at, seeing these, we're at 90% design in some of the projects, and so it's really exciting to see that so much come to fruition. And we couldn't have done it without the input of all of the folks who are on this call and others who attend those meetings, and not only our CAG meetings, but also other meetings in between. And so we would just want to say back to everybody that we're so grateful for you giving up your time to give us the input that makes these projects even better. So
Catherine, I
yes.
do have one announcement, sorry.
Okay.
Which actually is wonderful news for the community to hear. So for those of you that may be familiar with the 8th Avenue over the Platte Bridge that has been under construction, I think it started back in October. They are going to be opening the bridge on Monday, May 16th. So just wanted to share that information with all of you, which also I know for bicyclists who have been detoured through that project, it looks like a new bridge will be opening on Monday, May the 16th. So I wanted to share that good news with all.
That's good news.
And
thank you, Anthony.
Yep. And just please, you have my email address. If you feel like this is a lot of information and it's really challenging to follow all of the presentation and the information, which is quite technical, please reach out. The project team is happy to schedule a meeting with you and walk you through any portion of any of the presentation, or if you have any particular questions about a particular segment of Colfax that impacts you directly as the corridor does. But if there's something that really does impact you, please reach out. We are here to answer your questions. And it's been great working. This team has just got stood up, as Catherine mentioned, in the last year. And we're finding a way to work well together and figure out who's doing what. But most importantly, just know that if you have any questions on anything that we present or anything information that's on the website, do not hesitate to reach out, and we will happily schedule a Teams or a Zoom meeting with you individually to answer those questions.
So thank you, everybody. Apologize for making you 5 minutes late from being with your families. We look forward to seeing you next month and picking up on the storm drainage project, and also any new information we can bring to your attention. Don't hesitate to reach out to us in the meantime. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.